Yeah, hey, how you doing, Angela? How you doing today? I think your audio cut out a little bit there. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There you go, there you go, there you go. Yeah, I can hear you now perfectly. How's your day
Good.
been today?
It's really just starting.
Excellent, excellent. I
It's
like
11
that.
a.m. It's 11 a.m. here, and I had a little bit of a lion this morning, so
Okay, excellent. I do like that background you got there. Very, 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 very beautiful image
thank
there.
you.
Excellent,
Mhm.
excellent. Yeah, so go ahead and let the viewers know who you are, what you do, and why you do it, Angela.
Hi, yes. My name is Angela Dawn, and I live in Annapolis, Maryland, USA. It's about an hour outside of Washington, D.C. I'm a sex, love, and relationship coach. And I work with individuals and with couples to help with anything in those areas of sex, love, and relationships. One of my focuses is to help couples get closer. And I've been working as a sex coach since 2021, and my area of specialization is in Tantra.
Excellent, excellent. Like what you mentioned about helping couples get closer. A lot of couples they get used to each other's company over a period of time, and don't notice that they're actually becoming more distant, even though they're together. So, like what you do is actually very useful for them in terms of letting them see ways for them to get closer together. But you yourself, like when we look at previous relationships that we've had in the past, we've all had different struggles in relationships and things like that. What would you say some of your struggles have been in previous relationships?
I would say, wow, I've been through two marriages, so I
Okay.
have some experience with that.
Yeah.
I'm very happily partnered right now with another coach. So it's wonderful to be partnered with somebody that also has the same tools and skills and background that I do. So we can both really invest properly in the relationship.
Right.
I think, for me personally, and I think this is true for a lot of women, um, and people in general, not just women, but maybe especially true for women, is we hold back, right? We don't really come into our full expression if we feel like that is going to be met with any kind of resistance. So I definitely work with folks who want to be able to communicate better with their spouse or partner. People that realize that they're keeping things to themselves because they want to be accepted, right? So my business is called Authentic Heart Coaching. And there's a reason for that, right? Because we really have to come forward in all of our authenticity to have true intimacy. And a lot of people, you know, maybe act a certain way when they're courting somebody, right?
Right.
Because they want to seem impressive. And, that goes on throughout a relationship, right? Just, something that you want to do or some interest you have or something you would like to change. Maybe you think it wouldn't sit right with your partner. So you just let it go, right? And over time, you erode your own authenticity. And I definitely remember times in relationships where I was trying to think, like, how could I say X, Y, and Z in a way that my partner will accept it? Right. And so I work with couples on the piece of listening and holding space, right? And being able to hear your partner in a non judgmental way where you're not trying to fix or change what they're feeling. And then, working with the other side of the piece where, you have the courage to really express who you are and communicate authentically and, of course, respectfully with your partner.
Excellent,
Mhm.
excellent. So, like, you mentioned people holding back in relationships because they're going to be met with some kind of a resistance. So,
Mhm.
and I agree that it's not just women; it's also men that don't necessarily come out with how they feel and also
Right.
hold back, even though it's a lot of women feel that way too. But in what ways would you say you have had to hold back? To avoid being met with some type of resistance in your experience?
Oh, I mean, the ways are varied, right? It can be, something really interesting, like something you want to try in the bedroom that
Right.
maybe the partner isn't interested in, but it could be something really simple, like, always going to the mountains on vacation because your partner likes to go to the mountains when really you'd rather go to the beach, right?
Mhm.
So it happens in little ways and big ways. Even just, you hear a lot of times about, one partner wants to have kids and one partner doesn't, right? And that's a way that, sometimes people just go along with what their partner wants and it's not really their true desire. And then they go in, further along in their life and they feel like they really missed out on something.
Right.
And, that's why I guess it's so important, to really be who you are. And if you
Mhm.
are who you are in a relationship, you're going to attract people that want to be with you as you are authentically. So,
Definitely, most definitely. Yeah.
mhm.
So, in what kind of steps would you say you took to express yourself, like so you didn't no longer have to hold back when you realized that, hold on a minute, I don't actually want to have to hold back how I feel, but I want to express myself. What kind of steps did you take to bring that to a reality for yourself?
Well, I would say, before I became a sex coach, I became very interested in relational dynamics, like maybe around 2017, 2018, before I studied to be a sex coach. And I instituted a weekly meeting with my partner where we sat down and really talked about what was happening that week and what was happening in our relationship. And it was just like a set time that it was, the status of our relationship meeting and what was going on. And, every Sunday we sat down on the porch and we had a conversation that was expressly, what's coming up? How is this going to impact you? What do you want to be doing? What do I want to be doing? And just starting to have those frank conversations in a container, in the container of, yeah, we're having a weekly relationship meeting.
Right.
Right. So that's one step that was taken. And then, eventually I took my sort of hobby relationship interest into the professional realm. And I studied with Layla Martin for 2 years and got my certification as a sex, love, and relationship coach. And then my certification as a tantric sex coach as well. And then, once I was in that world and it was very much easier to step into my authenticity.
Excellent, excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Right. So I want to talk to you a little bit about attraction, right? So we all go out all the time and we see different people and we find different people attractive, right? So would you say it's like natural for us to be monogamous or non-monogamous, or what is your viewpoint on monogamy versus non-monogamy when we look at like human nature and the fact that we go out and are attracted to people all the time?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's really a personal choice as to whether you're monogamous or non-monogamous. And I definitely believe in consensual non-monogamy. I'm kind of interested in this idea of relationship anarchy, which sounds really radical, but it's not. It's just making sure that you and the person you're in relationship with agree on the parameters of your relationship. So you can be a relationship anarchist and be monogamous or not, right? And the point here is not overvaluing the romantic connections in your life at the expense of other connections, right? So being a relationship anarchist means it's important to you to make time to spend with your friends or your family as much as it's important to you to make time for people that you're actually having sex with, right?
Okay.
Uh, so I accept my clients, whether they're monogamous or non-monogamous, but personally, I have a view that I would say is really more philosophical because there's a way that monogamy conveys ownership
Mm.
and a lack of ability to really have, ownership over your own body and what you do with your own body. So if you would want to have your own bodily autonomy, right? Being allowed to do with your body what you choose to do with your body. So in that regard, I think philosophically, it makes sense to be open in some way.
Okay.
And you're right. People are attracted to people. Being
Mhm.
attracted to people doesn't mean it's going to be a good relationship.
Right,
right?
right, right.
I mean, it might be some good sex, maybe. But I do think the best sex happens within a well-constructed relationship.
For sure, for sure, for sure. So, what would you say to people that have chosen monogamy? They feel like they want to be monogamous. They've thought about it. They feel like that's how they want to, the path they want to go down. But they still find themselves attracted to different people, and they kind of struggle with that. And they intend to be faithful in monogamy, but they have this type of like urge or kind of calling to do other things. How can they navigate that, and what should they really be focusing on, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I mean, monogamy is a choice in that aspect, right? If somebody kind of wants to have other relationships besides their primary relationship, but they have chosen with their partner not to do that, then they have to uphold that choice, right? Or else we're dealing with cheating. And I would say that the wandering eye, as it were, has less to do with being attracted to other people and more to do with something missing in your own relationship,
Right.
right? So going back to that primary relationship and putting some focus there. Are you spending enough quality time with your partner? Are you communicating openly with your partner? Do you have non-sexual intimacy with your partner? And, that's a good time to be, if you're thinking about having an extra relationship affair and you don't want to, hire a coach, get a therapist, talk about what is it that you're missing. Surely it's not just sex that you're after. There's probably something else underlying. And there's also great, great, great beauty in having a good sexual relationship with yourself, like having a self practice, a self pleasure practice where you can give yourself what you need sexually. And I definitely help my clients with that as well. And expanding your own pleasure practice will then also shift whatever relationships you're in sexually, because you'll know better what you want. And if you have open communication with your partner, you'll be able to better express your desires to them and receive more of what you want in the intimate context. But I think, when people feel like they're compelled to cheat, it's very rarely actually about sex.
So what you're saying essentially is like more open communication to actually dig deep into what it is the relationship itself is based on to see what is actually missing. So in order to move forward with the
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah. And I think really that ability to listen and hold space for your partner's thoughts and ideas and emotions, and the ability to really express and know that you're not going to be shut down by your partner, developing that kind of open communication, that is what is going to produce a quality relationship. Right. So I
Excellent.
think I always start my couples workshops and my couples work with communication exercises, because that's really how you're going to get closer to someone, right? And the intimate piece follows.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so like me myself, I coach men and women, and a lot of the women that I coach tend to struggle with anxiety towards relationships and within relationships. And the men that I coach, the anxiety that they feel affects their confidence when it comes to dating and relationships. So, what would you say were some of the causes of anxiety, and how can they be overcome when it comes to dating and relationships?
Yeah, well, I think, we can look at relational anxiety as something that's very ancient.
Right.
When we were tribal and hunter-gatherer, very early humans, if we couldn't exist on our own, right? We needed to have community to be able to have food and shelter and water and everything we needed to survive. So doing anything that would be rejected by the community and force you out of the group would mean imminent death. So some of this anxiety we have relationally goes back to something that old, right? That programming that if we are not accepted by our community, tribe, family, however you want to look at it, right? And that means your romantic partner. If you're not accepted by your romantic partner, your spouse, that means you might die, right? So we have that very ancient programming. And I think a lot of relational anxiety comes out of that. And then we have layers of how we were raised, what we were taught by our, family of origin, by the religion that we were brought up in, by our peers, by the media, yeah. So there's all these layers that come into it. And as things happen to us in our lives, we internalize them. And so it is really kind of subconscious or sometimes unconscious thoughts that we have, ideas that we have that trigger those anxieties. So, for example, if you were trying to think of something that would be applicable, maybe you saw, you learned from your parent that oftentimes things we want don't work out. Like
Right.
some kind of big thing happened in your childhood and you learned that things don't work out. And that just got stored, not just in your brain, but in your body. Right.
Right.
So
Right.
then later on, you're in an adult relationship or you're dating and you don't fully invest in the relationship because you were taught at such an early age and you internalize the idea that things don't work out and you don't want to get hurt. So then you hold back, right? And that can cause anxiety in relationship. But there's a lot of different manifestations of the reasons why and how we store that old information in our body minds, right? Because it's really one thing, the body and the mind. There's different philosophies on, how our brain stores information versus how our body stores information. But what I find to be very successful in these situations where people have triggers in relationships or they have anxiety in relationships, somatic work, really working with the body to find like where is that anxiety felt in the body and what does that anxious part of you really want and need,
Right.
and being able to work with those parts of yourself that are holding you back in a different way.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so you did mention people that don't necessarily want to or are able to invest in a relationship because of the anxiety that they're feeling. But on the other hand of that, like for example, when someone's in a new relationship, they get a lot of chemistry, a lot of butterflies, and they want to immerse themselves into that relationship, right? And invest into that relationship. But at the same time, some people, when they do this, they start to lose their sense of self. So how can people be able to immerse themselves into a relationship and invest in that relationship without necessarily losing their sense of self in the process?
Well, I think when that happens, very often there isn't a well-developed sense of self, right? And that still goes back to programming that's carried in the body. So and I would say it probably goes back to dynamics one had with their caregivers. You know, was your parent kind of over involved in your life? Things like that. Or did your parent neglect you? Did you not get the love that you need? And as soon as you're getting like a little bit of love, you're just like going all in and forgetting who you are because you've been starved your whole life,
Mm.
right? So, I work with that kind of thing in individual coaching with people because it is very individual. It's very personal. Like everybody has a different life story
Mhm.
and there are themes certainly, but not getting the love that you always wanted and needed as a child is a huge reason why people throw themselves into romantic relationship without regarding their self and what they need.
Okay. So for people that are going through that type of a struggle and they recognize that, okay, there were issues in their background that has affected their self-confidence, how can they start to actually rebuild that sense of self within them outside of a relationship or before getting into a relationship and getting immersed in a relationship, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, you need to have your own life. That is what is going to make you most attractive to a partner, almost in any regard, right? Maybe you have a job or a vocation that you devote yourself to. Maybe you always have like a set of friends that you do something with. You have your hobbies. So making sure to always maintain your own life separate from the other person, right?
Right.
And pursuing what brings you joy. If the only thing in your life that brings you joy is your partner, there's some self-development that needs to happen, right? You need to go out and experiment. What do I like to do? And so part of the journey is really learning who you are.
Right.
And once you learn who you are, practicing who you are, and to some extent deciding who you want to be, right? Because we all have some choices in that regard. So finding what brings you joy and pursuing that, and then having your partnership enhance that already wonderful life you have on your own, rather than relying on a partner to bring you that joy.
I agree with what you said there, by the way. And a lot of people, well, people that I've spoken to, they tend to look at their past and let it define what they can do going forward. But they don't necessarily realize that they can create themselves in real time, so to speak, by
Yeah.
deciding how they want to live. So, what are some of the ways people can break away from past experiences and actually decide that, okay, I actually want to create myself in real time and decide how I want to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, if you're struggling with that, I would definitely suggest therapy and coaching, because having somebody in your corner, right? Somebody on team you that can help guide you in that process is can be very, very important. Some people are able to do that, have these realizations and come into conscious creation in the moment as who they are. And some people need some help with that.
Right.
So don't be afraid to get help with that process. But yeah, it's a mind shift. It really is a mind shift to not be defined by the past, and to be able to just really like feel into your body in the present moment is like, how does this feel to me? Whatever the activity is you're about to do, the decision you're about to make, the pub you're about to visit with your friends, even where you're sitting in the room, right? Like, how does it feel in your body? How often do we go into maybe a restaurant or a concert or something and we find that we're uncomfortable, which is where we are in the space? Speak up, move to where you are more comfortable in the space, and even, choosing what you're going to eat. Listen to your body. What
Yeah.
does your cock say is good for lunch, right? Like really listening deeply and making choices from the body starts to change your habits.
Okay. So really listening to the body and letting that be your guide,
Yeah.
essentially. Excellent, excellent,
Yeah.
excellent,
And if you don't know how to do that, getting the help you need
excellent.
to be able to do that. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, there was a time before dating apps where the only way we met new people was in person and speaking in person. But like in more recent times, dating apps became very popular. But I want to ask you, like, in your opinion, if you went to an event, for example, and a man approached you and let you know that he's interested in you, versus if you was on a dating app and you received a message from a man letting you know that he was interested in you, which one is more impactful on you, and which one is more memorable to you, in your opinion?
Oh, I mean, I would say someone approaching me in person would be more memorable. It may or may not be a pleasant memory, though. A lot of people, especially women, a lot of women, especially if they're attractive, get approached by lots of men, and it can be a big turnoff. So I think the first thing that a man needs to be sure of if he's approaching a woman is that he's a safe person, right? Is he treating her and interacting with her in a way that is going to make her feel safe? She is never going to call you or give you her number or anything like that if she feels the least bit unsafe. So making sure always that, when you're talking with people in person, that's a safe situation, and taking things slowly, going for a coffee, right? Or meeting back the same exact place, the same exact time the next week, something where you're in a public situation and there's no pressure. right? And no one knows where you live and that sort of thing. It's very important to keep yourself safe. And it's very important, especially for men, to understand that that level of safety is necessary for women to be able to open up. I think there's a lot of value in dating apps, and I think you're right. Like maybe there's less weight to it. If a woman is getting a lot of messages on a dating app, she's like, which one do I want to respond to? And maybe she's not getting 10 people that want to take her for a coffee, one night out at the bar, right? So just in terms of numbers, there's an impact with the dating apps, but I find that dating apps can be quite useful if you know who you are, you know what kind of relationship and person you're looking for, and you know how to present that information, and you use the apps wisely. So a lot of people talk about dating apps as being ineffective. I've worked with clients before to help them create a profile that is going to work for them. And it really is like magic. But that first step is knowing who you are. So if you're that person that we were talking about a few minutes ago that doesn't even know what they like, you have some work to do before you want to put yourself out there on a dating app, because unless you know who you are and you know what you want, you're going to pull in things that are not compatible, right?
Yeah, excellent, excellent, excellent. And as coaches, like we speak to different people all the time. We work with different people, and we learn a lot of things by working with different people. What are some of the biggest things that you've learned from the people that you've worked with as a coach, would you say?
So, I mean, one of the things is just how afraid people are to speak up, how afraid people are to communicate and really be themselves, because I see it over and over again. And the sort of lack of communication and non-sexual intimacy that develops in long-term relationships and marriages, especially people kind of growing apart after children and not finding a way to get it back together. I have a lot of couples that I work with that are in their 40s and 50s, even 60s, that somehow lost part of their connection, perhaps when they had young children at home. And you are able to get it back. If you had that spark initially,
Yeah,
you can absolutely get it back.
for sure.
And it's just a matter, it's really so simple. Like I mentioned to you that I have a partner and I have my own podcast, and he and I were interviewed by my co-host on the podcast a few months back, and you can listen to that. It's called Quickies with Angela and Katie. And but the partnership that I have with Dan, it's so simple. We just communicate openly, even when it's hard,
Excellent.
and hold space for each other and make repairs along the way. And when I'm able to teach couples to do that, it is just outstanding, the results.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, it always comes back down to that communication. Like once that's set correctly, everything else blossoms from that
Yeah,
space.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Angela, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can the viewers find out more about you, contact you, and learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on the web at AuthenticHeartCoach.com. And I'm on Instagram and social media at Authentic Heart Coaching. So you can find me, on Instagram or on the web. If you go to my website, you can sign up for my A list, which is my weekly newsletter, and you'll get plenty of relationship tips and find out what I'm up to. And definitely check out the podcast, Quickies with Angela and Katie.
Fantastic. And for the viewers, all of that information will be in the description below, so you can contact Angela and find out more about her as well. Once again, Angela, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you, and you have a great day now.
All right. Thank you, Kayo. It's been
Thank
fun.
you. Cheers.